I don't know about you, but I'm seriously concerned about the future of Apple's professional applications like Final Cut Pro and Logic Pro. Logic 10 was released in July 2013. Are you telling me that 10 years later, on this big version change, 10 to 11, all Apple could add with all the resources that they have, they're one of the biggest companies on the planet, that's all they could do? This is a topic that comes up with many of my music production friends, many of my YouTuber friends, and it's really concerning. And I have a feeling that there's something really wrong there. Let's talk about it. You might be thinking, hey Dom, why do you care about Apple and their applications? You might have watched my video about my transition from Windows after working on Windows for over 20 years to the Mac for music production. If you haven't watched this, I'm going to link it right here. And I was very complimentary about Apple and macOS and how it helps me in my everyday workflow and for my professional needs. But if I want to be fair, I want to tackle something that keeps coming up all over YouTube, and this has to do with the way that Apple treats, updates, maintains its professional apps. And what I mean about professional apps, I'm talking mainly about Logic Pro, Final Cut Pro, and Apple Motion. I'm going to talk a little bit about Logic. I've said in a previous video that if I wasn't using Cubase, I would probably use a combination of Logic and Pro Tools. But there are quite a few reasons why I don't use Logic, and maybe that's not the right video for this. If you want me to make this video, let me know. But the reality is, sometimes I use Logic because I'm running a mixing, mastering, and production studio. So I have clients that sometimes they send me Logic projects. So I have Logic. I know how to use Logic very, very well. I have to say my main concern personally is not Logic Pro, it's Final Cut Pro. Pretty much 95% of the videos that you've watched on my channel for all these years have been edited exclusively in Final Cut Pro. And the reason is very simple. It's super efficient, it's fast, it's the best NLE video editor when it comes to YouTube specific editing. There's a reason why huge YouTubers like MKBHD, iJustine, they all use Final Cut. I know how to use Adobe Premiere Pro. Is anyone still using Premiere Pro these days? I don't know. That's not the issue. The thing is, Final Cut Pro is amazing. But quite honestly, all the updates from Apple have been stingy, to say the least. So we get like very minus updates on every single version, like a tiny little thing and tiny improvement there. Yes, you can search for media like this, and I've been really active in the Final Cut community. I've been watching many YouTube channels that are dedicated to Final Cut Pro. I could easily create a second Final Cut Pro tutorial channel. Honestly, I know the software inside out, but I do feel really bad for those YouTubers that really have to scramble to find topics for new videos because there's nothing new, and even the new updates that were announced in the latest Apple event were so underwhelming. There's no auto captions, no rotoscoping. The audio handling is abysmal in Final Cut Pro. Most Final Cut Pro users don't know what I'm talking about, but coming from the audio world, I'm telling you, audio in Final Cut Pro is terrible. It's always event-based, there's no buzzing. Any plugins that introduce latency, forget about them. You're gonna get clicks and pops. It doesn't have basic normalization options. It's not good. And Apple has failed to give us a proper update in Final Cut Pro for years. So I'm concerned. The same thing goes with Logic. And I have Logic right here in front of me. I bought Logic ages ago. I have Logic. I have to have Logic. And like I said, I'm not going to go into detail about why I don't use Logic, but if I have to give you one reason, would be this, the thing that you're seeing just in front of you right now, and it's the mixer. I really don't like the way the mixer works in Logic. I find it super hard to look at. I find the ergonomics pretty bad. The faders are tiny. You can't really make them big and resize them. You have these tiny view meters. There's no proper metering if you ask me. I wouldn't use Logic for mixing, even though I think it's an amazing DAW. Other than that, it's the closest thing to Cubase in my opinion. And if there was no Cubase, I would use Logic. But let's jump into the Apple Store, right? And as you can see, I've updated to the latest version of of Logic, let's go here to the version history and let's check out what happened in Logic 11. And I want to draw your attention right here to the update frequency. So see, 2 years ago, 10.7.2, 1 year ago, 10.7.6. Whenever I meet friends or I meet producers that use Logic, that's the one thing that I gather from them. They're really disappointed with the frequency of the updates and what you get with each update. So if you're using Cubase, you're probably spoiled. We have an update pretty much every single year with really substantial features, and if you feel that these features are good enough for you, you can pay $80 and then you update to the latest version. Logic is free technically, so basically all the updates are free, and of course it's cheaper because you pay the Apple tax by buying a Mac. However, you do pay for this free arrangement because the updates are really poor. So this update, this 11 update, let's see what it has, right? So AI enhanced tools. I'm not even gonna mention this because honestly, I think this is what's wrong with the music today, if you ask me. I've tried those, I've watched videos on YouTube of people showing those, and in my opinion, I don't see a reason why these things exist, apart from maybe if you're a songwriter and you have no clue about music making and you want to lay down a very cheesy, cheap sounding backing track to sing over it. But other than this, AI bass player, really? The smart tempo is cool, the pitch correction plugin, yes, fantastic. But let's see what's there. Separate a stereo file into stems for vocals, drums, bass, and other parts. Okay, this could be useful. In Cubase, I always do this with spectral layers, and from what I've seen up to this point, it doesn't compare, I'm sorry, but yeah, for a quick stem splitter, it's great. Chroma Glow, okay, it's a plugin. Then they have these improvements to the iPad. Okay, if you're using Logic on the iPad and you pay the subscription, I guess this is great. Then we have some improvements with the sound library, special audio, which is great. And then the rest of the enhancements is Bounce in Place adds automatic real-time recording for external instruments. This is cool. Of course, we have this in Cubase, but that's not the point. MIDI generated by supported software instruments and effect can be routed to the input of other tracks for creative layering. And then everything else is pretty much really incremental updates and some workflow improvements. But honestly, I don't see anything big there. It's the same story, the same situation like with Final Cut Pro. I really want Final Cut Pro to become better than DaVinci Resolve, which I also use. I love DaVinci Resolve, but I don't think it's the best NLE for YouTube editing. I think it's great if you're doing something like a course. My mastering courses were all edited in DaVinci Resolve, but Final Cut seems to me like it's stuck, and I see that it's the same situation with Logic. I don't really care about Logic because I use Cubase, but I do feel for the producers that actually use Logic as their main DAW. Also, Logic up to this point, and there was an amazing video about this, I'm going to try and link it down below, couldn't take advantage of all the cores on the latest Mac computers, which is insane. And Cubase, on the other hand, that's not a native Apple app, was able to take advantage of all the cores from the latest CPUs that Apple has to offer. So what's going on there? Should we be concerned? Is Apple neglecting their professional applications on purpose? I really struggle to understand what's going on here. Is Apple planning to turn all the professional apps into subscription? Are they targeting the mainstream consumer market more? That's the only thing I can assume, because even the latest Final Cut Pro update, it has some features like automatic color correction, which honestly looks pretty bad. I would always do color grading manually. So for me, as a video professional, this is concerning. Where are the power tools for us, the professionals that create content, do video editing? And if I was using Logic, I couldn't care less for AI session players. And I know that many Logic users were furious when they saw that this is the new Logic 11 update. We're talking from 10 to 11. So Logic 10 was released in July 2013. Are you telling me that 10 years later, on this big version change, 10 to 11, all Apple could add with all the resources that they have, they're one of the biggest companies on the planet, that's all they could do? AI session players, some incremental updates, one plugin, and that was it? I really struggle to believe that. So I think that Apple might be moving their professional apps to a more consumer-friendly path, or they're waiting to implement even more AI features, because I know with the new macOS, they're going to add tons of AI, and maybe what they're going to try and do is implement more AI features into their professional apps so they can make things easier first for the consumer and maybe then for the professional. But I have to say, as a Final Cut Pro user, I'm really concerned. I don't like this direction, and I really hope Apple starts updating their professional apps, Final Cut Pro that I really care about, but also Logic, because I know many people want Logic to be properly updated as well for professional users like they used to. Because at this rate, I don't see myself sticking around waiting for them to update Final Cut Pro. I'm just going to jump ship and go entirely to DaVinci that I've bought already, which is also something that Apple themselves show on their keynotes. So on their keynotes, they show DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro, but they don't show their own Final Cut Pro. And the same goes for Logic. In the comments down below, let me know your thoughts. What do you think? Is Apple silently killing their professional apps, or are they preparing something really cool and exciting? Let me know in the comments down below. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, don't forget to check out my courses, my Modern 80s Kit Max, or use the super thanks button, the join button, or watch this video or this video. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.